Funding for Living Wild is provided by this station and other public television stations nationwide.
In the northern highlands of Tanzania is the Ngorongoro crater. It's the dawn of the zebra's day. The rising sun slants across the crater floor and gradually illuminates a treasury of wildlife. Nearly 5,000 zebras live among the vast herds of other animals like wildebeest and antelope. Today, like all days, there are challenges and risks to be faced, but there is also a sense of peaceful cooperation among the animals who live here. Each day, the zebras follow the same routine, the search for food and water and safety from their predators. The beauty of this African landscape conceals its harsh realities, and what for every zebra is a daily struggle for survival. Tanzania is located in East Africa, and on its northern border is the Ngorongoro Conservation Area. It has been a wildlife reserve area for almost 20 years, and it is here that some of the most important observations of zebra behavior have been made. The hills surrounding the ancient crater floor rise to almost 2,000 feet. This is an enclosed area of about 150 square miles, with huge herds of animals that roam freely, protected from hunting and poaching that often happen outside its boundaries. Zebras stand about 4 feet in height to their shoulders. They are smaller than horses, more the size of wild ponies. But surprisingly, no two are the same. The basic pattern is fixed, but the individual details differ. Each one is as individual as human fingerprints. Although zebras appear to be white horses with black stripes, the reverse is just as true. This is a dark zebra in which the black bands are so broad that the white parts are reduced to very narrow stripes and spots. It looks like a black animal with white markings. Zebras' striping patterns are formed in the early stages of development when they are still embryos. When the two variations meet, the difference between them is quite striking. Some young zebras are born with brown and white stripes that eventually darken as they reach 1 year of age. Zebras live in small family groups, usually with a single stallion and 2 to 6 mares with their foals. The adults faithfully stick together for a lifetime, as long as 15 to 20 years. It is difficult to distinguish males from females because they are the same physical size. It's their behavior that sets them apart. This is a stallion. Most of the mares are accompanied by a foal. The youngsters always stay very close to their mothers, where they're much safer. In fact, this close-knit family group is the zebra's hope of survival. And the stallion's role is crucial. He keeps his mares by firmly excluding other males. To do this, he is constantly guarding the outer edges of the group and aggressively challenging other males that come within 100 feet. He walks out to this one and they sniff each other, champ and buck, in what is often called a greeting. It's the stallion's way of acknowledging other males and establishing dominance. If the intruder accepts the stallion's dominance, serious fighting can be avoided. The stallion also guards his group from predators and looks for missing foals. He tries to defend any member of his family who's in trouble. He also has to keep an eye on unattached males, because there are plenty of young stallions around waiting to abduct one of his wives or his daughters to form their own family group. Immature or unattached males live in bachelor groups, like this one, until they reach the ages of 5 or 6 years. Here, a couple of adolescent stallions are indulging in a bit of play while the air is still cool. Even during friendly bouts of play, there are rules to follow. The idea seems to be to nip the opponent's rump or heels. It's clear they're just playing by the way they take turns at chasing each other. But this play has a serious side to it, preparing them for their future role in establishing and maintaining their own family groups. Here, the young stallions are rehearsing for the time when they'll have to fight for their own mares. The bachelor stallions are also fighting to establish their own social order of dominance. When a stallion who has a family group becomes too old to defend his mares, or should he be killed, the most dominant male from the bachelor group will take his place. Greetings among males can be a sign of friendliness. In harem species, mature stallions do not attempt to steal one another's mares. The challenges come from the younger males. Mature males tolerate each other as long as the visitor is submissive. Facial expressions emphasize the importance of teeth in fighting, and the males are quick to roll back their lips to indicate aggressive intentions. When these challenges do erupt into fighting, they use their strong teeth and jaws to bite at the ears, neck, and throat of their opponent. They often drop to their knees to protect vulnerable areas of their legs. This stallion is chasing a young mare. Courtship for zebras includes a great deal of chasing and nipping at the mare's hindquarters. If the mares are not ready to mate, they lash out with their hind feet. When a mare is in heat for a period of 5 to 10 days each month, the courtship intensifies, and the males will follow the mare constantly. This mare has a new foal. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, and the foal is only 10 minutes old and very shaky. The umbilical cord is still attached, but will drop off in a minute or two. During the birth, the mare and her foal are defenseless, so they are guarded by the family stallion. He stays nearby, but she's edgy and won't let him get too close. At first, the foal will follow almost anything, even a wildebeest. So for the first day or two, the mother prevents other zebras from coming too near until her foal learns to recognize her smell and stripe pattern. The foal must get onto its feet as quickly as possible, and to stay alive, it must know who to run with. Morning is the safest time to be born because it leaves all day to recover, although no time of day is completely free from danger. Hunters like hyenas are never far away. They're attracted by the signs and smells of a birth. Hyenas are skillful hunters, but the family groups provide relative safety for the vulnerable offspring. The foal is still protected by the stallion, but it's getting stronger by the minute. Soon it'll be able to run alongside its mother, essential to the young zebra's survival. Hyenas kill more than 400 zebras a year in the crater, so it's clear that the newborn foal must be able to walk as soon as possible. The bond between mother and foal will last for a full year until her next foal is born. It is not uncommon, however, for a mare to have a foal only once every 2 years. The mare attends to her newborn by licking it and keeping it close to her at all times. Perhaps the most important advantage of the harem arrangement is the group defense of the young. Instead of running away from predators, a herd of zebras can maintain a tight grouping for protection. In the absence of other playmates, foals try to play with their mothers. The mares are singularly uninterested. Zebras spend much of their time grazing, consuming almost 30 pounds of grass each day. At first glance, the zebras, wildebeest, and elands are all after the same kind of grass for grazing. And yet, the struggle for a share of the fodder has actually driven the rivals to seek out different types of grasses, so that each species is able to take slightly separate portions of the vegetation. The diversity of animal populations, all within the same area, reflects the evolution of different feeding techniques. The melting snows from Mount Kilimanjaro that rises in the distance provides the area with the needed water for good pasture land. In this area of the crater is a swamp of dense rushes. The edge of the swamp is being turned into grassland that eventually could be new grazing area for the zebras. Elephants play a key role in the process. Because of their enormous size, elephants can penetrate thick papyrus and have the food supply to themselves, but not for long. With so many elephants at work, part of the reed swamp is opened up so that smaller species have access to the elephant's leftovers. When the papyrus is pruned, water buffaloes are next in the succession of grazers. Once the scrub is flattened, grass can grow. A host of antelopes and zebras then move in, but an element of rivalry keeps the contestants apart, nudging each other onto their own separate patches. Zebras have strong incisors that enable them to crop the toughest and the shortest grasses. They are non-ruminants and have a digestive system designed for processing bulk. Compared with a wildebeest, a zebra must eat twice as much food. On the plains, zebras take the coarse grasses, removing old fibrous pieces. This in turn encourages a nourishing new growth of tender shoots, and so prepares the pasture for other grazers. Not only the wildebeest benefit from the zebra's cropping, so do the Masai people and their herds of domestic cattle. As the zebras drift away from their grazing grounds, the cattle take over the grass for the rest of the day. The nomadic Masai and their cattle have been part of the African landscape for hundreds of years. They have become as much a part of the ecology of the Ngorongoro crater as the wildlife. Continuous cropping by domestic cattle and wildlife has generated a patchwork of rich grass to everyone's benefit. The Masai know only too well the importance of the zebras and the antelopes. They call them their second cattle and make no attempt to exclude them from the grazing lands. They know that if drought hits the countryside, their cows will starve, but the more resilient wildlife will survive and become their source of food. It's part of the Maasai's insurance to be surrounded by a good mixture of wild grazers. To survive, zebras need not only plentiful pastures, they must also find safe watering holes, and that can mean walking for many miles. The watering holes are used by a variety of animals and birds. It is a natural focal point for the comings and goings of all the larger animals. Here, zebras mix with the waterside residents. These are blacksmith's plovers. Plovers live in parts of Europe during most of the year, but come here to spend the winter months. An African spoonbill. The thirsty visitors make a generous contribution to the life of the swamp because some of the nutrients in the grass are left behind in their droppings. The water is fertilized with minerals, which means more plant life, more snails and crustaceans. It also means more food for the birds. Sacred ibises, Goliath herons, lily trotters, yellow-billed storks, all members of a healthy waterhole community. A family group of zebras has arrived. They're nervous at first and watch for lions who might try and ambush them. It's this foal's first view of the swamp. Visiting here is part of the daily routine, and the family will come here every day at about the same time. Water holes are gathering places for other families of zebras, and that can also present the opportunity for more challenges. Where families mingle, established stallions and bachelors rub shoulders, and there's always the danger of families being scattered. A stallion has abducted a young mare from a family, but he's got to fight to keep her. The father is trying to keep his daughter, but the competition from the younger stallion is too fierce. That's the young mare in front. This is the way a daughter leaves home, so she won't inbreed with her father, but he hasn't given up yet. The father nips at the heels of the younger male. Although the father has kept the challenger away from his daughter for now, eventually, the younger stallion will win. Fights like this can go on for an hour or so and create quite a disturbance at the watering hole. Although the fights look vicious, the rivals usually finish tired but unscathed, except for a minor bite or two on their hindquarters or neck. When a mare is in heat, she releases a scent in her urine. The stallion has caught the smell and investigates the patch of wet grass. By the smell, a stallion can tell instantly whether a mare is in heat. These are all males, and although they know the female is in heat, they will not attempt to mate with her. She will only consent to the advances made by the stallion of her own family group. When it quiets down, the other zebras are content to go about their activities of grooming each other and rolling in the grass. Zebras breed year-round, and their foals can be born in any season. Animals evolve breeding routines that give their youngsters the best chance of surviving. By breeding at any time during the year, the zebra decreases risk from disease, drought, and predators. And the family is there all the time to protect the foals. Not so with the zebra's neighbors. Wildebeest have quite a different approach to breeding. They operate in the safety of numbers. For much of the time, they live in vast, anonymous herds, without the benefit of a family structure. The strongest bond is between a mother and her calf. Unlike zebras, wildebeest have a calving season. In the crater, 3,000 are born, mostly during the month of February. By dropping all the calves at once, the wildebeest outmaneuvers its predators by swamping the market. 3 out of 4 don't live very long, but hyenas can't possibly kill every calf. A sufficient number of calves escape to form the future breeding stock. That's the wildebeest's way of safeguarding the species. Male lions, like this one, rarely kill for their food. They wait until a lioness makes her kill, and then move in to take advantage of an available carcass. Even though these lions weigh more than 400 pounds, they're smaller than a zebra that weighs closer to 600 pounds. This zebra colt got away, although he's too badly injured to live very long. At the moment, a jackal is interested in chasing a wildebeest calf. The calf is weak and bewildered and in peril. Will survive. But the jackal didn't even get close. As the day wears on, the zebras spend time taking care of their skin. They line up, one at a time, to dust bathe in the same open patches. Each one probably leaves its own personal scent in the sand. The fine powder may also discourage skin parasites and condition the coat after the animal has worked up a sweat. Grooming keeps the coat clean and combed, and inaccessible parts are serviced by getting one of the family to help. Judging from the time they spend on it, one suspects that zebras get a lot of pleasure from grooming. But there's not always a family member around when they need it. In the bush, skins are under continuous siege from annoying insects looking for places to lay their eggs. The tail takes rear guard action against them, something like a fly swatter. Despite the zebra's defenses, the battle is never over. Every animal harbors a host of parasites. Seeking them out is the tickbird's job. They're specialists in finding food on large mammals. One moment on a zebra, the next on a water buffalo, and finding food in all kinds of nooks and crannies. The oxpecker, the tickbird's other name, also picks at wounds and sores, but mostly the relationship is mutually beneficial. The oxpecker is an illustration of the enterprise of evolution. The skins of some animals provide feeding opportunities for others. Other birds benefit from the larger animals in different ways, like the yellow wagtail. These wagtails spend the winter months feeding in the shadow of the zebras. Because the foraging zebras flush insects from the grass, the wagtails take advantage of the available food. It's strange to see a member of the heron family hunting in the drier grasses, but that's what cattle egrets do. They feed more efficiently by stalking grasshoppers alongside the grazing animals. Where living space is shared, animals often seem to cooperate in each other's survival. Baboons can be seen grazing very near to the zebras. It's doubtful whether this relationship has any formal basis, but sometimes animals help each other by alarming those around them to any approaching danger. Giraffes also share their grazing space with zebras. The giraffes live in the woodlands throughout the year to feed on their favorite source of food, acacia trees. Nibbling the tops of trees leaves room for the other animals to graze below. The acacia thorns are crushed by the giraffe's strongly ridged palate. The giraffe's long neck enables it to reach up to a height of nearly 20 feet. At this height, it has a monopoly on the foliage. No other animal, antelope or zebra, could even begin to compete. Even giraffes need tick birds to keep their coats free from parasites. This type of antelope, called a gerenuk, represents the halfway stage. It browses on bushes and has developed a special trick to help it. The gerenuk stands on its hind legs and can extend its feeding range upwards. This feeding habit has arisen out of competition. The narrow snout helps it to probe between the twigs and spines to reach otherwise inaccessible foliage. Antelopes, giraffes, and gerenuks have all adapted to the competition for food, grazing from ground level to the tops of the trees. By midday, the greatest problem is the heat and how to avoid it. Some animals, like these jackals, seek any available shade. Jackals keep cool by evaporating water from their tongues. The lions are in a state of inactivity. But even in the heat of the midday sun, some of the lions remain active. One of the zebras sounds a warning. But for the lioness, it's apparently too hot to make any real effort to capture her prey. Forced to leave the shaded area of the woodlands, the zebras move into the heat of the direct sun. And there are other problems to be endured. Columns of air generate dust storms that whirl across the dry landscape, and the sand is blown everywhere. It soon passes, and the winds are prelude to a more welcome kind of storm. High above the plains, the sky has developed great thunderous clouds. By mid-afternoon, the clouds are ready to release their cargo of water. The zebras stand without shelter for their brief afternoon drenching. The rain is essential for their survival. Without it, the grass would wither. Now that the soil is wet, fresh green shoots will soon spring up. After the storm, the countryside is refreshed, and the coolness reactivates the animals. The wildebeest and zebras once again return to the favored feeding area of the short grass plains. There's a theory that zebras are less vulnerable when mingling with the herds of wildebeest. From this distance, the striping patterns of the zebras stand out, but at a farther distance, they blend surprisingly well with the background. The wildebeest are large, dark shapes and are not easy to miss. A predator may therefore spot a wildebeest long before noticing zebras. Other animals have evolved different ways of becoming inconspicuous. Here, gazelles match their background. In soft light, a predator has a more difficult time distinguishing color, and it sees the world in shades of gray. Stripes may help the zebras to go unnoticed in the bush. At first glance, nothing here looks like a zebra. The intersecting lines on the zebra's hide break up the characteristic outline that a lion might be looking for. Although the stripe patterns may serve as camouflage, not all zebra species look alike. There are 3 different species of zebras on the continent of Africa. The zebras of the Ngorongoro crater are part of a group called plains zebras that are widespread throughout Tanzania, Sudan, to South Africa and Angola. Another species called mountain zebras are found mostly in mountain ranges of Namibia and Angola. The 3rd species of zebras, called Grevies, is the most endangered of all the species. Only a few thousand animals live in the remote desert areas of Kenya. This is Samburu, a baking hot area on the edge of Kenya's northern desert. Grevies live in drier country than the plains zebras and have evolved a social organization to cope with the harsher environment. Because food is more scarce, Grevies do not live in family groups, nor do they gather in large herds. Instead, mature males stake out territories over an area of about 6 square miles. These territories are usually in the favored grazing areas along the migration routes of females and their foals. If the female is pregnant and about to give birth, she may stay on a male's territory for as long as 3 months. Grevies are big, thick-set zebras, bigger than the plains zebras. Close up, their striping pattern is very apparent, but at a distance, they merge to make a shimmering gray shape. Back in the Ngorongoro crater, it's late afternoon, and the sun is sinking fast, and the evening's routine is underway. The pride is on the move. When lions begin to get restless, they move in fits and starts. At sunset, everything is bathed in a glorious golden hue. Water buffaloes are moving to new pastures to graze. The zebra family is heading for its sleeping area. And the Masai are herding together their cattle for the night. But the tranquility is deceptive because the most hazardous part of the zebra's day is just beginning. The hunter's day is just starting and will continue under the cover of darkness for the next 10 hours. In the first hour of twilight, a miracle of deception takes place. The zebras are transformed into ghostly apparitions, almost invisible, even in moonlight. It's daybreak, and some zebras are up and moving about. The predators are up at this early hour, too. The hyenas are determined to catch a young zebra. But first, they must dodge the stallion's attacks. He hangs back and tries to protect the foal. Hyenas usually hunt in packs. A wildebeest can be brought down by only a couple of them, so the young foal may not have a chance. And those still alive at the end of the day are the strongest. The Ngorongoro crater is a well-balanced ecosystem. There is enough rainfall throughout the year to provide a plentiful supply of grazing land for not only zebras, but other animals as well. For years, zebras were hunted for their skins that brought a high price in the commercial market. This kind of hunting drastically reduced populations of zebras that lived in surrounding areas outside the protection of the park boundaries. But Tanzania has set aside almost 4% of its land area for conservation purposes, a larger percentage of land devoted to wildlife than any other country in the world, including the United States. In all, Tanzania has 11 national parks and has a long-standing commitment to protect its natural resources. Many people of Tanzania feel that these lands and the wildlife that inhabit them should be held in trust for the world and its future generations. Although the zebras of Ngorongoro crater are not endangered, their populations could be pushed to a critical point if disease or drought affected them. Sooner or later, all will be challenged to put their skills to use to survive, including this little foal, who's just 1 day old.